Workshop Methodology for HAZOP. The Hazard and Operability HAZOP study is a structured and systematic examination of a planned or existing process or operation to identify and evaluate problems that may represent risks to personnel or equipment or prevent efficient operation. The HAZOP workshop methodology involves several key steps. 1. Preparation. Define scope. Clearly define the scope and objectives of the HAZOP study, including the boundaries of the system or process to be examined. Assemble team. Gather a multidisciplinary team with expertise in process design, operations, safety, and maintenance. The team typically includes a HAZOP chairman, a scribe, process engineers, control engineers, operations personnel, and safety specialists. Collect information. Gather all relevant documentation such as process and instrumentation diagrams, P&IDs, process flow diagrams, operating procedures, and safety data sheets. 2. Kickoff meeting, introduction. Introduce the HAZOP methodology and objectives to the team. Terms of reference. Review the terms of reference, scope, and schedule for the study. Roles and responsibilities. Clarify the roles and responsibilities of each team member. 3. Study process. Select node. Choose a specific section of the process node to study, such as a pipeline segment, equipment unit, or control loop. Define process parameters. Identify the process parameters to be studied for each node, such as flow, temperature, pressure, level, and composition. Apply guide words. Systematically apply guide words to each process parameter to generate potential deviations. 4. Deviations and causes. Identify deviations. For each guide word and process parameter combination, identify potential deviations from the design intent. Determine causes. Determine possible causes for each deviation, considering both equipment failure and human error. 5. Consequences and safeguards. Assess consequences. Evaluate the potential consequences of each deviation, focusing on safety, health, environment, and operability impacts. Identify safeguards. Identify existing safeguards that can prevent the deviation or mitigate its consequences. 6. Recommendations. Develop actions. Based on the assessment, develop recommendations to address identified risks, such as design modifications, additional safeguards, or changes in operating procedures. Document findings. Document the findings and recommendations for each deviation in a HAZOP worksheet or log sheet. 7. Review and follow-up. Review recommendations. Review and prioritize the recommendations for implementation. Follow-up actions. Assign responsibility for follow-up actions and track their implementation to ensure that the identified risks are adequately addressed. Guide words. Typically used in HAZOP. Guide words are critical to the HAZOP methodology as they help in identifying deviations from the design intent. The typical guide words used in a HAZOP study include 1. No not, meaning complete absence of the intended parameter. Example, no flow, no pressure, no temperature increase. 2. More, meaning quantitative increase in the parameter. Example, more flow, higher temperature, higher pressure. Less, meaning quantitative decrease in the parameter. Example, less flow, lower temperature, lower pressure. As well as for, meaning presence of an additional factor or component. Example, contaminants present, additional phase present. 5. Part of, only a part of the intended parameter is achieved. Example, partial flow, partial mixing. 6. Reverse, meaning reverse of the intended operation. Example, reverse flow, reverse reaction. 7. Other than, meaning complete substitution or deviation from the intended parameter. Example, different material, different reaction. 8. Early, meaning the parameter occurs earlier than intended. Example, early startup, premature reaction. 9. Late, meaning the parameter occurs later than intended. Example, delayed startup, delayed reaction. 10. Before, the parameter occurs before it is supposed to in the sequence. Example, pre-reaction heating, early addition of a reactant. 11. After, meaning the parameter occurs after it is supposed to in the sequence. Example, post-reaction cooling, delayed addition of a reactant. By systematically applying these guide words to each process parameter, the HAZOP team can identify potential deviations, assess their causes and consequences, and develop appropriate recommendations to mitigate risks. Post-HAZOP actions list. Once the HAZOP study is completed, the identified actions must be systematically addressed to ensure the process's safety and operability. The post-HAZOP actions typically involve a detailed review and implementation of recommendations. Here's a detailed breakdown of the post-HAZOP actions, the disciplines responsible for carrying them out, and the affected documents. 1. Action review and prioritization. Description: review the HAZOP recommendations and prioritize them based on the risk level, feasibility, and impact. Responsible disciplines: HAZOP chairman, safety engineer, project manager. Affected DOP report, action tracking log. HAP 2. Assign responsibilities. Description: assign each recommendation to the appropriate discipline or team for implementation. Responsible project manager, HAZOP chairman. Affected documents, action tracking log. 3. Detailed design review. Description: review the design documents to incorporate the HAZOP recommendations. Responsible disciplines: process engineers, design engineers, control engineers. Affected documents: process and instrumentation diagrams, P&IDs, process flow diagrams, PFDs, design specifications. 4. Risk assessment and mitigation. Description: conduct a detailed risk assessment for each recommendation to determine the necessary mitigation measures. Responsible disciplines: safety engineers, risk assessment team. Affected documents: risk assessment reports, safety case documentation. HAP 5. Implementation planning. Description: develop an implementation plan for each recommendation, including timelines, resources, and budget. Responsible disciplines: project management, planning engineers. Affected documents: project plan, implementation schedule. 6. Design modifications. Description: make necessary design modifications based on the recommendations. Responsible disciplines: process engineers, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, instrumentation engineers. Updated P&IDs, PFDs, equipment specifications, control logic diagrams. 7. Procedural updates. Update operating and maintenance procedures to reflect the changes made. Responsible disciplines: operations team, maintenance team, safety engineers. Affected documents: standard operating procedures, SOPs, maintenance procedures, emergency response plans. 8. Training and communication. Description: conduct training sessions for operations and maintenance personnel on the changes implemented. Responsible disciplines: training department, operations team, safety engineers. Affected documents: training materials, training records. 9. Documentation and record keeping. Description: ensure that all changes and recommendations are documented and records are updated. Responsible disciplines: documentation team, project manager. Affected documents: HAZOP report, action tracking log, change management records. 10. Follow-up and verification. Description: verify that all recommendations have been implemented correctly and are effective. Responsible disciplines: HAZOP chairman, quality assurance team, safety engineers. Affected documents: verification reports, audit reports. 11. Continuous monitoring and improvement. Description: monitor the process continuously to ensure that the implemented changes are effective and make further improvements as necessary. Responsible disciplines: operations team, safety engineers, continuous improvement team. Affected documents: monitoring logs, performance reports, continuous improvement plans. Disciplines and affected documents. Disciplines involved: 1. HAZOP chairman oversees the entire post-HAZOP process and ensures that all actions are completed. 2. Safety engineers conduct risk assessments, develop mitigation measures, and ensure compliance with safety regulations. 3. Process engineers review and modify process designs, ensure that changes align with process requirements. 4. Design engineers implement design changes and update design documents. Control engineers adjust control systems and ensure that control logic aligns with new process requirements. 6. Operations team update operating procedures and participate in training and implementation. 7. Maintenance team update maintenance procedures and ensure maintenance staff are trained on new procedures. 8. Project manager coordinate the implementation of recommendations, manage resources, and track progress. 9. Planning engineers develop detailed implementation plans and schedules. 10. Training department. Develop and conduct training sessions for staff. 11. Quality assurance team. Verify the implementation and effectiveness of recommendations. 12. Documentation team. Update and maintain all relevant documentation. Affected documents. 1. HAZOP report. Contains all the recommendations and findings from the HAZOP study. 2. Action tracking log. Tracks the progress of each recommendation. 3. Process and instrumentation diagrams, P&IDs. Updated to reflect design changes. 4. Process flow diagrams, PFDs, updated to reflect design changes. 5. Design specifications, updated to include new requirements. 6. Risk assessment reports, detailed risk analysis for each recommendation. 7. Safety case documentation, updated to reflect new safety measures. 8. Project plan, implementation plan with timelines and resources. 9. Implementation schedule, detailed schedule for carrying out the recommendations. 10. Standard operating procedures, updated operating procedures. 11. Maintenance procedures, updated maintenance procedures. 12. Emergency response plans, updated to include new emergency procedures. 13. Training materials, developed for training sessions. 14. Training records, records of personnel trained on new procedures. 15. Verification reports, reports verifying the implementation and effectiveness of recommendations. 16. Audit reports, documentation of the audit process and findings. 17. Monitoring logs, records of continuous monitoring activities. 18. Performance reports, reports on the performance of the implemented changes. 19. Continuous improvement plans, plans for ongoing improvements based on monitoring and feedback. By following this structured approach to post-HAZOP actions, organizations can ensure that identified risks are effectively managed and the process operates safely and efficiently.